Hello there, my very good friends. Andy Murray here for What Culture Wrestling, and within AEW, a monster is stirring, a secret weapon, if you will. Today, we're going to dive into a little bit of fantasy booking and talk about how AEW should unleash that secret weapon. Let's go. The concept of a monster in modern professional wrestling tends to break people's brains a little bit. What I mean by that is that because these people are so large, powerful, imposing, and dominant, there's often this idea that they should literally never lose. And when they do, well, you best get ready for that dreaded B word, because people are going to be shouting burial all over the place. In my opinion, the word burial is the most overused term when it comes to modern wrestling discussion. Whenever somebody takes a clean loss in this sport, somebody big, someone of renown, the knee-jerkers will throw that word around all over the place, to the point where, if you ask me, I think the word has kind of lost all meaning. And this especially happens when a monster gets beaten, when a big, beefy boy takes the pin. Invariably, with certain types of impatient wrestling fans, it's called a burial. The problem with that is that monsters in professional wrestling get slain. Organizations build them up and build them up and build them up to the point of near invincibility. They make them the size of a Canadian redwood. Then they find the perfect babyface hero who chops them down with his axe. Then the monster needs to be reheated. The monster needs to be built up again. The cycle repeats. And AEW at the moment are on the verge of doing just that with Brody Lee. Mr. Brody has gone missing since losing the AEW TNT Championship to Cody in early October. But he was as protected in that defeat as he was in victory when he squashed Mr. Rhodes in just 3 minutes. That squash on the special Saturday night episode of Dynamite was truly shocking because it's something AEW hadn't done up to that point, especially not with a top babyface star like Cody. And in defeat, well, I mean, just consider everything that happened in that match, all the big bumps, the massive moves through tables, off the apron, Cody literally wrapping a chain around this man's massive skull to squeeze the life out of him. Cody Rhodes had to go to gruesome, extraordinary, and brutal lengths to put the monster away. That's not a burial, it's a protected, clean loss. But now, with Brody off television, with him out of the picture, if you will, AEW needs to reheat the guy, and they should do that with Hangman Page. From day one, the Dark Order has been all about scooping up people who have been downtrodden by this awful, hard world. They are out to capitalize on people's insecurities and absorb them into their warped way of thinking. They identify weakness, they strike, and they do so by selling snake oil. So, pretty much like any cult that has ever existed. Adam Page, at the moment, is down, drunk, and dejected. He burned every friendship he has ever had in AEW with the goal of trying to make it to the top. But he hasn't made it to the top just yet. He lost the first ever AEW World title match against Chris Jericho last year. Then, at Full Gear this very year, he lost to his own former tag partner. Kenny Omega swept him aside in just 15 minutes. Now, Page is in full-on anxious millennial cowboy mode. He is, in honesty, a bit of a mope. The guy's on a downer. When the Young Bucks won the AEW World Tag Team Championships at Full Gear, you saw Hangman Page standing there, lurking in the tunnel. He's so down that he can't even bear himself to put those grudges aside and celebrate with his friends. And that's what makes Page the perfect guy for the Dark Order to try and scoop up next. You can have Hangman cycling back into in-ring competition, having his matches every week. And week by week, out come the Dark Order. All of them, the full complement, apart from Brody, who's still off television, circling the ring, building anxiety for an eventual turn. You build this slowly. Throw in little subtle teases here and there. I don't know, maybe one week you have Hangman have the Dark Order purple trim on his trunks. Maybe another you have, I don't know, one of those cool lower third things he does all the time. Something about Scientology or being a spooky mask pervert or whatever. There are so many little things you can do to build this up without actually pulling the trigger on Hangman joining the Dark Order. And the beauty of this whole thing is that the idea of Page joining the Dark Order is perfectly believable. The Dark Order are symbolic of the self-doubt that has characterized Page's current arc from the start of this year to when it eventually ends. This is a guy who hasn't always been so sure of himself. That's exactly the kind of thing that the Dark Order will look to prey upon. And when you think of the sheer volume of dudes and dudettes, Anna Jay, in the Dark Order, there are so many interesting character dynamics that you can play off. Because AEW has a potential top babyface star to build up, a monster it needs to reheat, and they're going to do that together at Revolution. Page should never truly join the Dark Order. He should come dangerously close to doing so, but at the very last minute, after several weeks of playing this up, months even of playing this up, here comes Brody Lee, the big comeback. Down goes Hangman Page. The blueprint for this return angle is very, very simple. It involves a lot of blood. Basically, Hangman is quite a pitiful character at this moment. If you have a heart and you've been watching this guy all year, you'll know what I mean when I say that. This guy, you feel really sorry for him, for everything that has befallen him in 2020. And by having Brody Lee destroy him, painting the ringside red with his own plasma, well, not only have you made Lee look like a bloodthirsty, brutal monster, but you've just made Hangman Page the most sympathetic guy, maybe in the entire promotion. And that's exactly what you need for this feud to take off. The Dark Order are getting over at the moment, primarily because they're just piss funny on being the Elite. That's a completely different side of their characters that they've been allowed to show on YouTube. But Brody Lee's return can coincide with a return to viciousness, with a return to brutality. He can exert his will over his group and rebuild them in his own image after guys like John Silver have risen in prominence in his absence. Because Brody Lee's not just a physical monster, he's a mental monster as well. From there, you have all kinds of fun pairings you can experiment with. You can have Page destroy Alan Angels in just a couple of minutes on Dynamite. You can have him go one-on-one with John Silver in what would surely be an awesome character-packed banger. And then there's a guy like Colt Cabana who not so long ago wasn't all too sure about joining the Dark Order himself. You could even have him flipping out of the Dark Order and joining forces with Page for a tag team match here and there. By the end of it all, the final destination for this storyline is Revolution. Hangman Page, Brody Lee, one-on-one. And at this stage in his run, after the end of what I think would be a pretty cool storyline, Page needs the prestige of a big pay-per-view spot and a big pay-per-view win. So that's why I'm putting this in the semi-main event, right below whatever the world title match is going to be. And make no mistake, Adam Page must win this match. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. This is the guy that AEW hopes is going to rise up to ace level within the next year or so. He is their top babyface project. And as for Brody Lee, well, after this match, for him, the cycle repeats. Because in professional wrestling, monsters get slain. That is the role. And if AEW can reheat Brody Lee to this extent for Hangman Page to come along and score an almighty rub by beating him at Revolution, well, this is a cycle, this is a feud layout that they can use with Brody Lee over and over and over and over again. Because that's how you book monsters in professional wrestling. Build them up to the point of near invincibility, make them the hottest, most dangerous heel in the entire territory, have them lose, and go back around again. That's exactly what AEW must do with Brody Lee when he comes back. And hey, it's also a pretty damn nifty way of heating Hangman Page back up as a potential world title challenger. But that's it, my goofy slice of fantasy booking, my take on Hangman Page and Brody Lee is done. But as always, I'm curious to know what you guys think, so go ahead and drop your comments down in the comments section below. After that, you can like, you can share, you can subscribe, you can ring the bell for notifications, you can follow us on Twitter at WorldCultureWWE and myself at Andy H. Murray, where you can tell me how wrong I am. Goodbye.